Okay, and I'm back. Yeah, got a phone call come in and booted me right off my live stream, so sorry about that, everybody. I don't know if I'm going to be able to continue doing this. Hopefully, I won't be getting any more phone calls, but I will give everyone a chance to pop back in if you so choose and continue on with the reading. So I guess I'll go ahead and mention again, this channel is viewer supported. If you'd like to help me doing videos, you can become a patron for as little as $1 a month at www.patreon.com/TheMorgile, or you can support this channel directly at www.paypal.me/TheMorgile. So just giving another couple seconds here. I don't want to start reading again until I at least give people a chance to pop back in. And of course, my little stupid phone software here does not tell me if there's anyone watching. So, good times, good times. Okay, so I'll just pick off at the beginning of the paragraph that I was on before I got interrupted by a phone call. Nowhere in reality can you find evidence for Earth curvature. Unlike the ancient philosophers who built our postmodern belief system thousands of years ago, we have modern technologies which allow us to conclusively prove facts without having to guess, argue, or theorize. Just a few examples of technologies and knowledge afforded to us which the ancients and even relatively recent scientists weren't privy to would be piloted flight, high-altitude weather balloons with digital recording capabilities, understanding of electromagnetism and instant communications, high-precision machining capabilities, for example, gyroscopes, computers and computer programs to aid in mathematics and geometry calculations, and programs to aid in 3D animation, lasers, and the list just seems to go on forever. Now, it's rather absurd to concrete our paradigm based on the imagination and so-called technology of ancient philosophers and mathematicians. For example, the ancient Greek philosopher Eratosthenes is often credited with, quote, proving or establishing the circumference of the hypothetically spherical Earth. And of course, his technology involved measuring the shadow cast by the sun in a hole in the ground, or a reflection of the sun in a hole in the ground in Alexandria, and about 500 miles away along the same meridian line, he somehow simultaneously measured the shadow cast by the sun at the same time on the same day in Syene. Now, it isn't apparent how he was able to be in two places separated by hundreds of miles simultaneously, so we can assume he had help, or he possibly did it the observations 2 years in a row. But the other more high-tech end of his technology consisted of a stick coming out of the ground. So a hole in the ground and a stick in the ground were the flagship technologies available to Eratosthenes to estimate the circumference of the Earth, assuming it to be spherical, with an essentially infinitely distant sun. Had he the ability to send up a weather balloon fitted with a digital HD camera, this dilemma would have been avoided thousands of years ago. Our technology has obviously advanced since that era, ergo a hole in the ground isn't exactly cutting-edge technology in the 21st century, nor is a stick in the ground. Unfortunately, we've allowed theories and technology of ancient philosophers to mold our collective paradigm for generations. Their often wild and hypothetical assertions seem to be immune to skeptical criticism, and their interpretations of data are not to be questioned or refuted, it would seem. Eratosthenes assumed the Earth to be a sphere, and the sun to be essentially infinitely distant. Ergo, the beams of the sun were assumed to be meeting the Earth in parallel lines, reaching the Earth at essentially the same angle. The fact that the shadow cast by the sun at high noon at the two locations separated by a few hundred miles placed upon the same meridian line will be zero shadow at one point and a longer angular shadow at the second point. Using the Pythagorean theorem, he determined the circumference of the spherical Earth to a startling degree of accuracy according to mainstream science. The problem is, his major premise is fallacious, invalidating the entire argument and any measurements extrapolated as a result. Eratosthenes' major premise involved the assumption that the Earth was a sphere of an unknown size, and that the sun was essentially infinitely distant, with the light rays from the sun coming in at perfectly parallel angles, casting parallel beams of light through space across the whole of the Earth. This premise is shown to be unfounded, as the sun is easily proven to be quite local, and the light waves emitted from the sun are simply not parallel to one another, especially when you consider things like refraction. And in terms of the light rays being parallel to one another, only in terms of local observation is that the case. Sun rays are obviously convergent lines when observed from a distance. However, they appear parallel on a local level only. Furthermore, the world is easily proven to display exactly zero curvature, as was already shown in the example of Chicago as visible across 60 miles of standing water. The observation that the sun will cast parallel shadows on a local level is indeed correct. However, according to another observer many miles away, the parallel sun shadows will not be parallel to those of the other observer, and this can be explained by holding one of two presuppositions. A, the sun is extremely distant with parallel sun rays hitting the whole Earth parallel to one another. In this hypothesis, it is the Earth curving which causes the marked difference in shadows cast by the sun at high noon in two positions situated several hundred miles apart, situated upon the same meridian line. B, the second presupposition you can hold, is that the sun is relatively close, with divergent rays of light emitted from the sun in an omnidirectional fashion. In this assumption, the Earth is a plane as opposed to a sphere. Therefore, the sun is necessarily far closer to the Earth than we've been led to believe, and it is the angle of the sunlight towards each location which is causing the apparent convergence in the shadow angles, and not the curvature of the spherical Earth bending underneath parallel sun rays. So the data construed by Eratosthenes to prove a spherical Earth and provide an estimate for its circumference is founded upon logically fallacious premises, again being an assumed spherical Earth and an assumed practically infinitely distant sun casting parallel light angles. Indeed, the very same data can be interpreted in a completely different fashion, providing end results which are inherently dependent upon the assumptions going into such hypothetical extrapolations. Triangulating on the sun using Euclidean geometry can give us a rough estimate of the size and distance to the sun, which greatly varies in either scenario. However, the apparent angular size and position of the sun are truthfully unknown due to atmospheric lensing, refraction, birefringence, and other factors. Practical experiments using postmodern technologies have indeed proven conclusively that the sun is local and the Earth is a plane. This nullifies any and all calculations derived from the Euclidean geometry holding the presupposition that the Earth is a sphere, placing the sun about 93 million miles away and the moon about 238,000 miles away. All of the theoretical distances involved with celestial bodies in the heliocentric model are ultimately derived from Eratosthenes' method of triangulating the sun. Since we know that the major premises and presuppositions held by Eratosthenes were 100% wrong, the foundational argument for a globular Earth is thus nullified. Moving on to the next subsection, perspective optics in the horizon. We're told that Christopher Columbus in the 15th century helped to prove the sphericity of the Earth by observing distant ships disappear beneath the horizon, hull first and mast last. Surely this must be due to the curvature of the Earth, and no other proof or discussion is necessary, right? Well, while Columbus's observation and theory is indeed interesting and amusing, it can be easily shown that the same phenomenon would occur were the Earth indeed a plane, based on the visual laws of perspective, fundamentally governed by the shape and nature of the spherical eye and convex lens, and the typical density of particulates in the air above ocean waters causing refraction. When a large object, such as a seafaring vessel, travels beyond the visual horizon, the natural operation of perspective causes such objects to visually merge with the ground horizon, bottom first, naturally. In other words, the top of the mast being further removed from the observer's line of sight will cause the uppermost portions of the vessel to remain visible for a longer period than the hull, as the hull will have apparently merged with the horizon at a point closer to the observer than the top of the mast. Furthermore, optical distortions and refraction caused by the high-density atmosphere, or rather atmosplane, over the ocean waters, cause visible light to reflect and refract, producing mirage effects nearest the waterline under certain conditions. In many cases, the mast will appear to drop lower towards the horizon with increased distance. However, this is of course 100% aligned with the operation of perspective upon a plane. In any case, we'll briefly show how the natural operations of perspective, dictated by the shape of our eye, as well as refraction, and how this completely explains the disappearing ships phenomenon without the need for a spherical Earth whatsoever. It is difficult to understand what visually occurs once objects travel beyond your apparent horizon line, or the vanishing point. In order to understand this fully, it's imperative to understand how the human eye works. And we'll use a series of diagrams to show how a single object will apparently change in angular size based on distance from the observer, while separate parts of the object will appear to vanish before other sections of the object based on the distance skewed from the observer's line of sight. Now, unfortunately, I'm not able to share these images with you, although if you want to do a web search for images of how perspective works in the eye, you may be able to get a good understanding of what I'm describing here. Now, in the first image, the object is placed very close to the eye. All of the light coming from the object enters the eye through the pupil, where the light converges and is cast on the back wall of the eye upside down and backwards, and the brain automatically flips and reverses the image after the data passes through the optic nerve. The bottom portion of the object constitutes a small angular side. And again, this isn't going to make much sense without these diagrams. Maybe this wasn't such a great idea. Yeah, I'm going to have to do this as a video. I wanted to try to get something out to you guys since I can't upload anything right now. But I'll probably just have to save this for another time, or at least this section. Well, what a shame. So, yeah, I don't know, guys. Might just have to scratch this idea and I probably won't be able to do much with this until I get my computer and my internet going. As I mentioned in the other stream before, someone called me and ruined this one. I was trying to install a Wi-Fi card into my PC so I could get internet, and I may have fried my motherboard. So anyway, I do have a 4-hour and 20-minute long video rendered and ready to upload. I'm going to try to get that up this weekend. So I guess I will sign off here for the moment. Not a whole lot I can do with this without sharing with you the images. So anyway, be good, guys. Love y'all. Appreciate you hanging out with me. If you'd like to support the channel, you can do so through PayPal direct to www.paypal.me/TheMorgile. You can become a patron for as little as $1 a month, www.patreon.com/TheMorgile. Again, I am sorry about this little mishap here. I was trying to do something for y'all, but it seems I'm sort of dead in the water here. Anyway, love you guys. Be good. Spread the word, spread the world, and peace.